The New Orleans Saints get it done in preseason game number 1.
Oh, my God.
Saints offense came out there looking like 2012.
Oh, my God.
The New Orleans Saints getting it done, beating the world champion Kansas City Chiefs by the score of 26-24. You know, in preseason, you have to look at these games a little bit differently than you look at some of the games in the regular season. You know, I had opportunity to watch this game. I was actually traveling back. Shouts out to my wife. Actually drove, you know, so I can be able to watch the game, so I can be able to talk to you all about it. And the start of this game, it just looked magnificent. This is what we wanted to see. This is what we've been having conversations on podcasts about. How would the New Orleans Saints look? And they look as good as you can possibly look. You know, and it was the first team. You seen the offensive line giving Derek Carr time to deliver the ball down the field. There were certain situations that they were in. I think there was a 3rd and 8 they converted on. You know, Alvin Kamara, he looked explosive. We seen some plays where Derek Carr dumped the ball off to Alvin Kamara. It looked like the good old days when the offense was on point. And also, you got to give credit where credit is due. You know, Jameis Winston came into the game, and when some of the first team offensive line was still out there, he drove them right down the field. And he threw a dime. I mean, an absolute dime.
Oh, my God.
To A.T. Perry. And shouts out to A.T. Perry extending the ball out. That guy's going to be a star. Like, he is going to be a star. He has 6 targets today, if you're listening to this on a Sunday, and he caught all 6. And he was extremely impressive out there. So he is a guy who came into the league. He was a 6th-round pick, which I don't understand how the heck that happened. But he came into the league as a 6th-round pick out of Wake Forest, broke all their receiver records there. And he is picking up where he left off on a collegiate level. So if he can replicate what he did at Wake Forest for the New Orleans Saints, I think the Saints have a lot of promise offensively if this guy can continue to be on the trajectory that he's on. I mean, Keith Kirkwood caught the first touchdown, man. Shouts out to Keith Kirkwood. And, you know, shouts out to him. Derek Carr talked about, you know, his relationship with Keith Kirkwood, and Keith Kirkwood wanted to train with him and volunteering his time. And that's what you want to hear. You know, Keith Kirkwood understands that he's in a competition, and the better his chemistry gets with the starting quarterback, the better his chances are of making a team. So congratulations to Keith Kirkwood. Congratulations to the first team New Orleans Saints, and also a little bit of the second team. But then that's when things start to get a little bit funny. It got a little bit crazy out there, man. That's when you started to see guys out of position, getting beat. I know we've been talking about Alontae Taylor and how Alontae Taylor is going to beat out Paulson Adebo, but I got to tell you, man, I know people have been high on Alontae Taylor. I like him a lot, but I know some people have been making this theory about Alontae Taylor starting over Paulson Adebo. All I got to say is it ain't happening, Captain. It ain't. It is not happening. Look, I like Alontae Taylor, but man, you out there getting beat and posterized by 2nd and 3rd string, even 4th string wide receivers. The one touchdown that they caught to put the first points on the board for the Chiefs, I mean, he was out of position. He didn't follow the guy. Guy was wide open. And that's not what you want to see, man. There was a lot of mistakes out there. Now, of course, you can always clean those mistakes up.
Clean up what I messed up.
You can always clean up the mistakes, and that's what preseason is all about. But, you know, a lot of the things that go on in preseason, we kind of sweep under the rug, right? We kind of sweep under the rug because we're like, it's preseason. But when I'm seeing guys still not being able to get to the quarterback, when I'm seeing guys getting their hands on a quarterback, can't bring him to the ground. There was one touchdown, I think the quarterback threw to Justin Ross, and shouts out to Justin Ross, man. The guy been through a lot, had a little bit of some health issues, the reason why he wasn't drafted last year. Then he tore his ACL. He was out for the entire year, but he finally got involved. But, you know, that pass that the quarterback threw to him, you had about 2 or 3 Saints that could have got the quarterback on the ground. And I just think that this is something that we've seen. And I know people say, oh, it's preseason, but I'm still not seeing it. And we didn't see this in preseason last year, which means that we didn't see much of it in the regular season. Now, there was a silver lining to those dark clouds. The Saints did generate some turnovers. They generated turnover. Alontae Taylor, he popped the ball up in there, redeemed himself from that bad drive that he had a series before. And, they got the interception off the tip pass. And, of course, the one that got them the ball back with a few minutes left on the clock in a full quarter to give them the go-ahead field goal to get the win. So that's a good thing. We know that the New Orleans Saints didn't generate many turnovers. Worst seasons when it comes to turnovers last year was just really, really bad. So there's a lot of promise there when it comes to the turnovers. But I would just love to see the Saints get more sacks, man. I mean, start early, let the motor run hot. We already know what the motto is in 2023, no cold motors. We don't want to see that. I don't want to see any cold motors, man. I'm tired of watching these guys out there not put their best foot forward, or when they're putting their best foot forward, slipping and sliding, allowing these mediocre quarterbacks to be able to deliver the ball down the field when they improvise. So I will hope that the Saints actually, get a little bit better when it comes to the pass rush. But speaking of pass rush, got to talk about Isaiah Foskey, the second-round pick out of Notre Dame. I have to say, I'm not one of those people. Y'all know me. If you've been rocking with the state of the Saints, you know that I just don't jump to conclusions like that. I just don't do it. I don't get all emotional and stuff like that when it comes to like certain plays. I don't have a problem on first down and love you on second down. That's just not how I work. But there's some things about Isaiah Foskey that concerns me. Number one, a couple days ago, there was a question that was asked to head coach Dennis Allen about Isaiah Foskey. The question was, what did he think about it? And what Dennis Allen said, it kind of hit home when I watched this game. He said he hoped that he can see a little bit more consistency out of Isaiah Foskey. He said sometimes, he's on, sometimes he's off, and I saw it in this game. That was one play by Isaiah Foskey. I mean, the dude probably was going about 10, 15 miles per hour. Like, he was getting stonewalled at the line of scrimmage. Don't get me wrong. And that's understandable, man. When you're going up against a veteran offensive lineman like he did, I mean, you're a young guy. You're going to probably take your bumps and your bruises. But there was a couple plays where he could have been in on a tackle. He just nonchalantly jogging over to the pile. There was a time where it just seemed like, he just realized he was getting stonewalled. There was nothing he can do about it. And that type of stuff really bothers me. It bothers me because I've seen guys in the past, and I see guys that's in the present right now. Guys like Carl Granderson. Carl Granderson is not the biggest guy. To be honest, I think him and Isaiah Foskey are probably around the same size. But you never see Carl Granderson quitting on a play. No matter what the situation is, he's still fighting and scratching and clawing and trying to get to the quarterback. And even when it came to Trey Hendrickson, which got him paid, and also with Trey Hendrickson, it got him paid in Cincinnati because of his hot motor. The motor was always running hot. He was bull rushing guys back to the quarterback to get the sack. He was always fighting every single play. And when I see Isaiah Foskey giving 80% this play, 90% this play, then I'm going back down to 12% the next play, jogging nonchalantly, I am really, really concerned at what I'm seeing. And don't give me that stuff about preseason, because we all know when it comes to playing on the field, you can't do that. You cannot do that. Now, if you're talking about maybe, if a guy gets the ball and, kind of soft tackle, just kind of wrap him up a little bit, I can understand stuff like that. But what I can't understand is when the ball is snapped and you're not giving your best effort. That is concerning to me. Because we all heard Dennis Allen talk about, I'd rather have to reel a guy in than to have to ask him or make him turn up. I did not like what I seen out of Isaiah Foskey. I think he's going to be a project. I think he's going to be a guy that the New Orleans Saints are going to have to put some serious work in. And if his motor is running that cold, man, you might need to try to find somebody else that can give him a little bit of help.
Help me.
And speaking of help, let's talk about the secondary in the second half. Now, some people might say, oh, man, these guys are not going to be on the team. They ain't going to make it anyway. But still, man, they got a lot of these guys out here. They got picked up from other teams. These guys are seasoned veterans. And when I'm saying guys out there, like not in position, not getting it done, it just completely concerns me, man. I don't want to go into the regular season with these same issues. And also, let's talk about Jake Haener. Jake Haener, he came into the game, drew an interception. To me, it wasn't his fault. I think that James Washington needed to kind of shorten up his route there. But Jake Haener, played okay. It wasn't nothing to knock your socks off, but he did have that good drive, and set up that touchdown. Shouts out to Ellis Merriweather, who I feel like really helped this cause. And from the looks of it, based on what we're hearing about Kendre Miller, hopefully that brother is okay with his knee. It's looking like Ellis Merriweather may have found himself on the Saints team. It looks that way because he runs the ball really well. He's a young guy, undrafted, of course. He came out of UMass. He's about 6 feet 1 or 2, about 225 pounds, big frame guy, but he took advantage of his opportunities. And when it comes to Jake Haener, I've seen some good stuff. I've seen some not so good stuff, but nevertheless, I think that I can see what the New Orleans Saints saw in him. There was one pass that he threw. It was pretty accurate. It was down the seam, man, and he gave his wide receiver a good opportunity to catch the ball. The guy just didn't come down with it. But I see some things in Jake Haener that I feel like the Saints can actually build on. I do want to talk about some of those folks that had something to say on Twitter. Those that had something to say about Jameis Winston on Twitter. The ones that wait for him to be at his lowest. The ones that had absolutely nothing to say when he was out there with the first team offensive line, but had plenty to say when all the offensive line starters went out and they was out there playing with a bunch of guys that were just inexperienced. And he started taking sacks. And then here we go talking about what Jameis Winston ain't good. He terrible, this, that, and the third. First off, all of you have been waiting for that moment. Anytime a person is at their lowest, here come the haters out of the stands, out of the trees, ready to take it any way that they can. Don't matter what the situation is. And for all those people out there, I got to tell you, man, for all those people out there that are criticizing this man for not being able to throw the football with an offensive line that was consistent of third and fourth string guys, shut the hell up and stop talking about football because you don't know nothing. If like the dude then just fall off the truck, right? It's amazing to me how this dude was able to deliver the ball down the field when he was in the game with first teamers. And then all of a sudden, he just forgot how to play football? Like, miss me with that. Look, if you don't like the guy, fine. But don't try to make it seem like this dude just a problem. He's a really good quarterback. The Saints showed you today that they are in a really good situation if something was to happen to Derek Carr. And you should have an appreciation for him because they have other teams out there wish that they can have a quarterback that can give you some level of play and still you can be able to elevate your wide receivers and players around you in the absence of your starters. So for all those people out there that's criticizing Jameis Winston for taking sacks when you got third and fourth string guys, individuals, God bless them, but they're not going to be on this team when the final 53 is announced. We know that. I know that. You know that. But, of course, you're not going to say that because some of you are just so miserable and just so petty that you're willing to take it any way that you want to. I just had to say that. And also, to all of the NFC South foes out there, the Panthers fans, the Bucks fans, the Falcon fans, especially the Falcon fans, because those Falcon fans, they were salty. They were salty, Who Dat Nation. You know why they were salty? They were salty because they saw what we saw. I seen somebody on social media talking about why the NFL world isn't talking about the Falcons.
Oh, my God.
They said why the Falcons only held their opponent to 9 points Why aren't they talking about my beloved Falcons?
Oh, my God.
Here's the reason why they're not talking about the Falcons. Because in reality, the Falcons aren't very good. The Atlanta Falcons, let's just be real about this. The Atlanta Falcons, over the last 3 to 4 years, have been the worst team in the NFC South. Let me count the ways. They hate on the Saints, but yet the Saints have beat them 7 of the last 8 times that they played them. They have been getting whooped by the Panthers. They have been getting whooped by the Bucks. Why would anybody want to spend their time talking about a team that is trying to figure it out?
Oh, my God.
And I'm not saying that the Atlanta Falcons can't get it right. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is they ain't did nothing.
Oh, my God.
They've done absolutely nothing. So why are we sitting up here trying to pretend? Now, it's good. You know what I'm saying? You get a golf clap, you know. I mean, good effort. But who cares? You, like, how many years? Seriously. I'm just being real. I'm not trying to be petty or anything like this. How many years have you, as a Saints fan, or a fan of the NFC South, if you just so happen to be listening to this or watching this, how many times have you seen or had a conversation with an Atlanta Falcon fan that they tell you, oh, this is going to be our year, and they tell you what they got, yet to be 4 or 5 games below 500? All I'm saying is you got to do something in a regular season in order for you to even be in consideration. How about winning some games within your division before we start having these type of conversations? Look, all of these NFC South foes out here are petty and salty because they saw what the Saints could possibly be. They know the Saints got a veteran quarterback in Derek Carr, who has a really good record at facilitating comebacks, has a high completion percentage, and is a leader. And they see that. And they are upset because maybe it's giving them some memories of what it used to be going up against a Saints team that was an offensive juggernaut. I don't know if the Saints are going to be an offensive juggernaut. I think a part of them doesn't want the New Orleans Saints offense to replicate what they have been in the past. But too damn bad because the New Orleans Saints look really, really good. The offense was on point. Shots out to the defense, getting a last-minute interception to get the ball back. Shots out to Dennis Allen, not phoning it in. He could have easily said, you know what, it's preseason, man. Let's just go in here, let's not use these timeouts. He used the timeouts. The Saints were able to get an interception, got the ball back in the red zone, were able to get a game-winning field goal, and the Saints get their first win of preseason. Hopefully, it won't be the last. My final thoughts about the game, all in all, I thought that the offense looked really good. Defense looked really good. Got to give them some credit. Cullen Saunders looked outstanding. That dude is a freak athlete. I think that the Saints are only going to get better defensively, especially when it comes to the first team. Good to see some turnovers. Would love to see some sacks. Would love to see Isaiah Foskey run with a little bit of a hotter motor. Would love to see some of these guys in the secondary step it up. I would love to see Alontae Taylor have a better bounce-back game than he had this game. And I look forward to seeing what the Saints can possibly be. Also, I have to mention this. Blake Gillikin is not clutch. Blake Gillikin is not clutch. I just said that because it was on my mind. Yes, he's a good punter. He can put the ball where it needs to be. But I think there's something in the back of his mind when things are on the line, like in clutch situations. Like it seemed like the momentum of the Kansas City Chiefs was coming their way, right? Kansas City was starting to build momentum, I should say. And that's when you start to see a little shank punt. And I noticed that about Blake Gillikin. Like in the grand scheme of things, throughout the game, he looks really, really good. But then when the team starts to build momentum, the opposition of the Saints, it just seems like to me like he just starts to choke. So I don't know, man. He's looking like Romo as a punter. Y'all know how Tony Romo used to be, right? Putting up them big numbers and stuff like that. But when it was crunch time, right? You know what I'm talking about. When it was crunch time, he just could not get it done. And I'm very, very concerned about Blake Gillikin. I gotta say that. I am very, very concerned about Blake Gillikin. He's a good punter, Don't get me wrong, but when the game is on the line, the chips are on the table, you got to get it done. But I would love to hear from you. What do you think about preseason game number 1? The New Orleans Saints get it done 26-24 over the Kansas City Chiefs. They're on to the Los Angeles Chargers. The Saints will be headed to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. So should be an interesting game. They got some joint practices. Of course, keep it locked right here to the State of the Saints podcast as we talk New Orleans Saints throughout preseason and the regular season. And also, I want to say thank you to everyone that subscribed to the channel. We have reached 10,000 subscribers. And, I started this show back in 2018, and I never knew that this show would end up, being what it is right now. And I'm appreciative to everybody that has ever checked out the podcast, that ever subscribed. Thank you all so much. We're just getting started. Much love to you. Hope you're having a good day, good evening, good night, whenever you're checking out this. Make sure that you check out previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM. And you can chop it up with yours truly on X at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?